Ladies and gentlemen, this whole investigation started with a lie. It started with a lie. When that 911 call was made, that Cara Rintala asked her neighbor, Roy Dupuy, to make, he said nothing about it being a domestic. But you know what the dispatcher did? The dispatcher called it in as a domestic. So before they even get to the crime scene, in their head is the idea it must be Cara Rintala because it's a domestic. The first responders hear that it's a domestic. The first police officers on scene hear that it's a domestic. And when Cara Rintala voluntarily agrees to speak to the police without a lawyer, 6 minutes and 55 seconds into that conversation, the question is asked of her, so I heard there's been a lot of domestic violence. That's why Cara Rintala is bringing up the domestic violence. Not because she wants to talk about a relationship with her and her wife. Because you'll hear evidence, I expect, that they reconciled, that they dropped the divorce proceedings. And you heard the prosecutor talk about, in that statement, Cara said that she was bamboozled. Want to know why? Because Annamarie told DSS that she lied. She lied about the assault and battery in 2008, that it never happened. So was Cara bamboozled by Ann? Well, if your spouse comes in and lies about you and gets you arrested and gets you kicked out of your house, I think you've been bamboozled. And I think that's what the evidence is going to be. Now, what you didn't hear from the Commonwealth, because they don't want you to look at this case objectively. They want you to look at it with blinders on, exactly like the first responders did, exactly like the state police did, exactly like the dispatcher did when they said it was a domestic. They want you to just focus on that. They want you to believe that Cara Rintala is the only one in the whole world who had access to that house, and the only one in the whole world who could have done this. What they didn't tell you about is a guy by the name of Mark Olsen. You didn't hear one word about Mark Olsen. Mark Olsen was Cara Rintala's partner as an EMT and firefighter. Mark Olsen was in love with Annamarie. And how do we know that? We know that, ladies and gentlemen, because when they got around to interviewing him 18 months later, when he first lied, two days later they said, "Where were you?" And he said, "I went to physical therapy that morning, and then I was home the whole rest of the day." Total lie. Total and complete lie. That's not true. But because the police believed it was a domestic, great, all right, we'll check that person off. We don't have to worry about that person anymore. And then they find out that almost a year later, maybe even a little bit more than a year, that Mark Olsen is still sleeping in a pink sleeping bag that Annamarie Rintala had at the fire station. And even Detective McGarrian thinks, that's a little weird. It's a little weird. Let's go talk to this guy and find out what's happened. So they go and talk to him 18 months later. And they find out that he is sleeping in Annamarie Rintala's sleeping bag. And he tells them a story that we're really, really good friends. And being really, really good friends, these are the things that we do. We go out to dinner. We go for drinks. We hug. We kiss on the corner of the mouth. I don't know why that's important, but he thought it was. And then at least on one occasion, Mark Olsen sent a text to Annamarie Rintala that he loved her. And he says he loved her in a friend way. That's what he did. And you'll hear evidence, I expect, that the police learned in the investigation that after Mark Olsen lied, that they actually went and got the records of his credit cards. Because they found out that Mark Olsen allowed Annamarie Rintala to have 3 credit cards that he paid for. that his wife knew nothing about. Because Mark Olsen, I forgot to tell you, was married with a kid. Doesn't tell his wife that he opens up these 3 credit cards. He'll say, I expect the evidence will be that he told the police that he was trying to help her build credit because she had really bad credit. That's what that I expect the evidence will be that the police knew. So they go and they look for these credit cards. They try to figure out what it was. What is it that you're allowing her to charge? What is it that you're allowing her to use? What is it that you, Mark Olsen, are taking on the responsibility of paying? By the time Annamarie Rintala is killed, there's a $7,000 outstanding debt on the credit card. Again, that Mark Olsen doesn't tell his wife. Now, I expect that you'll hear that the police found out that his wife, during the course of this investigation, finds out about 2 of the 3 credit cards. And he allegedly has some conversation with his wife where he doesn't fess out to the 3rd credit card. And his wife, I expect the police will tell you, that tells them, I don't want you involved with her anymore. I don't want you around her anymore. I don't want you working with her anymore. I don't like what's going on and I don't want it to happen. And what does Mark Olsen do? Continues to see it. What does Mark Olsen do? Try to find a way to still work with her. Until he makes this statement to the police that says, I'm a great friend, until you lie to me. Until you lie to me. And you'll find out, at one point when Annamarie Rintala was moving back to be with Cara Rintala, to fix their marriage, to have a chance at getting reconciled, that he's helping her move out of that apartment that the prosecutor told you about. And what he finds when he's helping her move out of that apartment is a note and a picture. And the note is from another woman, Cara Rintala. Cara Rintala and Annamarie Rintala had an on-again, off-again relationship about 10, maybe even 13 years. And he finds this note, and he finds this photograph, and he realizes, at the same time that he's having these conversations and these kisses on the side of the mouth and giving her these credit cards, she's in Vegas with Cara Rintala. And so what does he do? I expect that he will tell that the police knew that he never once brought it up to Annamarie Rintala. He saved the note, he saved the picture, but he never once talked to her about it. But you know what he did do? He took away her phone. He was paying for her phone, and he was upset that she was talking again and dating again Cara Rintala. And so what does he do, this guy who's trying to be your friend? This guy who's trying to help her build her credit? He takes away her phone. That's what he does. Not going to pay for your phone anymore. And I expect you'll hear the police say the reason that he said he did that is because he didn't think it was good that Cara Rintala was dating Annamarie during the time period that there may have been some custody issue. That's his explanation. But there's more than that. So when the police finally get around to interviewing him, and they find out about the kiss in the corner of the mouth, and they find out about the hugs and the money, and the credit card debt of $7,000, and the I love you text, there's more than, and the sleeping bag, there's more than that. They also find out that he's the one who texts at 1:53. He's the one who texts Annamarie Rintala at 1:53. And does he tell the police that? No, he doesn't. Does he tell the police, hey, I tried to contact her that night. She never picked up. That's so odd, because she always picks up. No, he doesn't. You know what he does instead, ladies and gentlemen? He deletes the text. He deletes the text at 1:53. And I expect the police will understand and know and learn that he deletes the text. And you know what they do about it? Nothing. The blinders on. You would think that a seasoned police officer a trooper from the state police who knows how to investigate homicides, when they find out they've been lied to, when they find out that there's someone who deleted a text, who probably was the last one to text that night, and doesn't tell you about it, you would expect that you go right back to Mark Olsen and say, hey, what's going on here? Why'd you delete that text? Because a good homicide detective would think, why delete that text? How did you know you were supposed to delete that text? When there's also a text at 8:15 that night that you don't delete. How do you, Mark Olsen, know that? But nobody asks that question. And again, because they are operating with blinders on. This is a domestic, this is Cara Rintala, we don't need to look anywhere else. But there's more. They finally get his credit card statement. And even though he had told the police, I went to physical therapy and then was home the whole rest of the day, they find out that there's a number of purchases on March 29th on his credit cards. So they try, they say, to go get the receipts and the time stamps for when he makes these purchases. And because it's been 18 months that they had blinders on, because they believed it was Cara, some of them they can't get. But there's one that they did that I want you to pay particular attention to. Sometime around 4:30 on March 29th of 2010, Mark Olsen goes into a Walmart to purchase a $7 pair of pants. Now you might ask yourself, why do you need a $7 pair of pants in the middle of the day? But the police don't ask that question. Nobody asks him why he's buying a $7 pair of pants. But they go back and they say, hey, you have all these purchases on your credit card. You must have been out that day. Now I remember. Oh yeah, I went to Home Depot, and then I went to Bob's Furniture with my wife and my daughter. I went to Bob's Furniture. We were looking for some furniture for my daughter's new apartment. And we went there to look for stuff. And yeah, I don't remember going to the Walmart, but I could have gone to the Walmart. And you know what the wife says? No memory of going to Walmart. You know what the daughter says that the police knew about? No memory of going to the Walmart. 4:30 in the afternoon. You stop what you're doing when you told the police you were home, and you go buy a pair of pants. But let's talk about the Bob's Furniture. So now the police know that this is Mark Olsen's alibi. So what do? Nothing. Do you go to the Bob's Furniture and you try to get a video to see if he's there that day? Well, initially, Trooper McGarrian said he did go and he never saw Mark Olsen, his wife, or his daughter on the video of the Bob's Furniture. A little bit later he said he doesn't even remember if he went and got the video. Again, ladies and gentlemen, domestic, blinders on, let's not look anywhere else. That's what happened. And then when they find out that Annamarie Rintala was also having this relationship with Cara Daniele, they went to go talk to Cara Daniele. And Cara Daniele lies to them as well. She says she goes to her gym that day, and she goes for a run, about 2 hours, maybe 3. And in the middle of her run, which is the opposite direction of where Annamarie Rintala and Cara Rintala live, she tells them that she goes in this direction. They get her records, they get her bank records, and they find out that she makes a withdrawal over here, closer to where Cara Rintala and Annamarie Rintala live. And so what do? Do they go back and say, hey, wait a minute, you said you were going in this direction, and now you're going in this direction, according to your bank statements? Nope, didn't happen. And then they also find out she goes to a tanning appointment. And nobody questions whether or not when you're in the middle of a run, you would normally stop for a tanning appointment. Nobody questions that. And I expect you're going to see, as part of the crime scene, that there is tanning lotion on that basement floor. But does anyone ask about it? No. Does anyone ask her why she didn't tell the police about the stop to go tanning in the middle of her run? Does anyone ask her about whether or not, why she stopped at the ATM in the middle of her run in the opposite direction of the route she told the police she was going? No. Again, ladies and gentlemen, because that whole thing started with this is a domestic response. And so they weren't looking anywhere else. They were only looking at Cara Rintala. And they were working really hard to make the pieces fit. And if you don't look anywhere else, if you keep those blinders on, then you don't have to do the rest of the investigation. You don't have to go and eliminate these people. You don't have to figure out why Mark Olsen is lying to you. You don't have to figure out why somebody stops to go tanning in the middle of a run. You don't have to do any of that because you believe it's a domestic. Because you believe, even though it's false, that this whole call starts because it's a domestic. Now, beyond that, ladies and gentlemen, in this case, Cara Rintala ends up, you'll hear evidence, on the 29th, getting called in as a firefighter. And you'll hear evidence, I expect, that if you pick up your phone when you're a first responder, and you refuse to take the call or to come in to do the extra work, you get punished in some way. If you don't pick up your phone at all, if they can't reach you, you don't get punished. Commonwealth wants you to think there's something nefarious about the fact that when Cara Rintala is with her young daughter, after she had already been called into work that morning, picked up the phone, agreed to go in, took a call, came back to her house, the fact that she doesn't take another 2 calls from her work isn't as nefarious as the Commonwealth wants you to believe. And I expect you're going to hear evidence to that effect. That when you don't pick up the phone and you don't tell them you're available, then nothing happens to you. But Cara Rintala, I expect the evidence will show, was following that procedure and nothing more. And what does Cara Rintala do? She can't get Brianna to go to sleep. Brianna naps sometime between 2 and 4, and Brianna's not going down. And her wife is tired, and she has to work that night. And for anyone who's ever had a 2-year-old, you know it's impossible to sleep when a 2-year-old is running around the house. So what does Cara Rintala do? She takes Brianna, she puts her in the car, and she drives around. Now the Commonwealth will say, we don't know where she went. As a parent, how many times have you put your kid in the car and drove around to try to get your child to go to sleep? For 2 reasons. One, she wants to let her wife sleep. But more than that, you know the meltdown is coming if your child doesn't nap. And so yes, there's a period of time where Cara Rintala is driving around trying to get Brianna to sleep. And it doesn't work. And so what does she do? She goes to the mall. She tries to walk through the mall. She tries to do what she can to fill the time so she doesn't have to go home and interrupt her wife who's trying to get some sleep. Now, what you'll hear, ladies and gentlemen, is while she's driving around, she does ultimately sometime around 5-ish, when she knows her wife has to be back at work at 8, texts her wife and says, hey, we think we're gonna go to the McDonald's, do you want anything? You know, this is where Brianna wants to go. She gets into the McDonald's parking lot, and Brianna doesn't want McDonald's, so she doesn't get McDonald's. And you'll hear at some point that there'll be evidence, I expect, that Cara Rintala gets out of her car during this whole time period because she's changed Brianna's diaper. And when she changes Brianna's diaper, she goes and she throws stuff in the trash. Again, ladies and gentlemen, you had a 2-year-old, you're not going to drive around in the rain with a dirty diaper. That's what happens. And that's what I expect the evidence will be. But what happens when Cara Rintala gets home after she goes to a bunch of different stores? And it's not to have an alibi. It's because she can't get her 2-year-old to go to sleep, and she's trying to allow her wife to get some sleep. But now she knows, you gotta eat, because you gotta go to work. So, do you want this, where I need you responding to me? They're not as nefarious as the Commonwealth wants you to think. Now, beyond that, ladies and gentlemen, what Cara Rintala doesn't know is happening is that on the 25th of March, Annamarie and Mark Olsen have a date. They go to Connecticut. Mark Olsen doesn't tell his wife about it. While he's in Connecticut, she wants a dog. And she wants him to spend $250 on a dog for her. And he's willing to do it, because he loves her. And he can't spend it on one of the credit cards that his wife might find out about, so he's got to do some finagling to try to get some money so he can buy her the dog. And she makes a bunch of phone calls and tries to find the dog that she wants to buy. And ultimately, she calls him back and she says that after he spent the $250 on the dog, she needed $20 for a dog crate, because she had to crate the dog. And you'll find that she never bought a dog. She never needed a crate. And that she used Mark Olsen. She didn't use him that one time. She used him again and again and again. And one of the instances that you'll see that she uses Mark Olsen is that she wants Mark Olsen to stand in line for her at a store to get an iPad for Easter right before she's killed. And so how does she get Mark Olsen to do that? She promises him a big kiss if you get in line at 6 o'clock. And I expect the police know, because they've looked at the texts. How big a kiss? The earlier you get there, the bigger kiss. And so what do the police do about that? Nothing. They don't do a single solitary thing. What do they do about the fact that Mark Olsen figures out that there is no dog and there is no crate, and that he's been lied to, and that he's a good friend until he's been lied to? Nothing. They do nothing about that. Now, beyond that, ladies and gentlemen, when Cara Rintala gets home and she sees her wife at the bottom of the stairs, she does what every parent would do. She gets her child to safety, and then she goes and tries to help her wife. And when she goes and tries to help her wife, she realizes her wife is dead, and she's hysterical. She's hysterical. And the first thing she says to Roy Dupuis is, "Call 911." Because she still believes there's a chance to save her wife. When she gets downstairs, she's an EMT, she's a firefighter, she knows her wife is dead. And she's in agony. And she rolls her wife's body onto her lap and cradles it, because she can't believe her wife is dead. And she cradles her wife's body until the police get there. And she's crying, saying, "I can't believe Ian is dead." And you'll hear evidence that at that point, the police decide that there's something suspicious. And that decision gets made again, domestic and blinders. So they say, we have to get Cara Rintala off the basement floor and away from Annamarie Rintala and bring her upstairs and start talking to her. And that's essentially what they do. They roll Annamarie's body off of Cara. She goes upstairs, follows their instructions completely. She follows their instructions to sit at the table and to not touch anything. And that's essentially what she does. And then they come up to her and they start asking her questions. And does she say, "I'm not going to talk to you"? No. She says, "I'll answer any questions you want. What do you need?" She gives them permission to search her phone. She gives them permission to search her house. She makes a statement, a 2.5-hour statement without a lawyer. She answers every question that they ask. And they want you to believe she was so focused on these domestic issues. But you'll hear 6 minutes and 55 seconds into that statement, it's the police who bring up the domestics. And does she lie about it? Does she say, oh no, we were great? She says, no, we had some problems. We did have some problems. But we worked it out. We were on the right path. We don't do that anymore. We don't fight like that anymore. And the Commonwealth told you that the reason they believe that happened is because the judge threatened to take their daughter away if they came back. I expect you'll hear evidence that they actually went to therapy. They worked things out. Annamarie moved home, and things were better. Now, is there that texting about having a mail over the night before? Yeah, there is. And I think you'll learn during the course of this trial that Annamarie is projecting her own infidelity and is suspicious of Cara because of what she's doing with Mark Olsen. And you'll see Cara's texts, which are, it's just like a bunch of old schoolgirls. We're just gossiping here. There's nothing going on. But Annamarie believes different. And Annamarie makes that statement, I hate our relationship. I'm gonna leave. If she's gonna leave, ladies and gentlemen, what's the problem? Why would anyone need to kill her if she's gonna leave? But the police don't ask those questions. Instead, they want you to believe, in this case, that there's something nefarious about the fact that Cara Rintala starts talking about the domestic issues when they themselves bring up the domestic. So you'll hear that Cara Rintala made the 2.5-hour statement. She gave them her phone. She gave them permission to search the house. And she didn't stand in anyone's way for 1 second. And the other thing that you'll notice that the police understood about Cara Rintala that night, she did not have a scratch on her. You'll hear that there was a struggle in the basement. You'll hear that somebody strangled Annamarie Rintala. You'll hear that somebody put their hands on her neck for 3 to 4 minutes. And that there's disarray in that cell. And not a scratch, not a cut, not a scratch, not a bruise on Cara Rintala. Now I suggest to you, ladies and gentlemen, that you're also going to hear evidence in this case. And the Commonwealth made it clear that there were no phone calls made by Cara Rintala during this time period that they think she's cleaning up the scene. And that's just their theory. They don't really have any evidence to that effect, but that's their theory, that she's cleaning up. But what no one's asking is why would she need to clean up evidence in her own house? Why would she need to cover DNA when she lives there? Again, domestic, blinders, that's what happens. Now, you also heard some evidence that the Commonwealth said the medical examiner is going to be very important in this case. Time of death is very important in this case. That's what they say. What you're going to hear, I expect, from the medical examiner is that they didn't follow procedures in trying to determine the time of death. That they didn't do all of the tests they could have done to determine time of death. Instead, they're going to take this bell curve, and they're going to take the mean number of hours, and they're going to say, that's it. That's what it must have been. And I expect you're going to hear evidence that that mean number means nothing. You can't have any confidence in that mean number unless you also look at the outliers, the bottom of the bell curve on either side. And when you look at the bottom of the bell curve on either side and you include that in your time of death calculation, you have a confidence interval of 95%. And do you know what's on this side of the bell curve in terms of time of death, if they included the whole curve to get that 95% confidence interval? 2 hours to full avidity. 2 hours to full rigor. But again, ladies and gentlemen, I don't expect their experts to say that. Now, I can't tell the Commonwealth what to do. I can't tell them which evidence to present. But I can tell them, in this case, that when you investigate, and I think you'll understand, when you are investigating a case and you aren't following where the evidence goes, when you're investigating the case based on this implicit and cognitive bias that was falsely injected into this case from the very beginning, the investigation can't be fair. I expect you're going to hear evidence that Mark Olsen's phone was pretty silent that night too. But nobody asked him any questions about that. And I can't, again, tell the Commonwealth what to do, but in this case, if you don't hear from the trooper who did the investigation, Trooper McGarry, if they don't call him, if they don't call Mark Olsen, if they don't call Cara Rintala, if they don't call Roy Dupuy, then is this really a search for the truth? Or is it the Commonwealth endorsing the blinders in the investigation that they know started with a lie and continued with implicit bias? And ladies and gentlemen, if this is not a search for the truth, if this is not an opportunity to give you all of the evidence that you need, so you can look at these witnesses and decide for yourself whether or not to believe them, then it is really a search for the truth at all? Because if it's not, what are we doing here? Cara Rintala did not kill her wife. And if this trial isn't a search for the truth, then why are we all here? What are we doing here?